case you're just joining us, it's Daybreak here on Arise News, and it's time for the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages of the papers. We'll start with our sister publication this day. It says, Lawal, Tinubu is cornered. He's taking sides against Christians. To your tent, O Israel, warns the gods want to destroy ex-Lagos governor and ruling party. Urges Buhari to invoke his powers to revoke vice presidential nomination. Says ex-Borno governor is overambitious, Machiavellian, and Shetima complicit in Chibok girls abduction, terrorism. This is what the northern Christian leaders are saying. Ameti's ally Prince will quit ruling party on same ground. There you see, for you to know that picture, of course, the election in that state is coming up on Saturday on 16th. Osun 2022, INEC reassures voters they will decide next governor. That's found on page 40. Heathrow asks airlines to stop selling summer tickets, limits daily passengers to 100,000. Again on page 40, that's where you can find that. And CBN seeks proper disclosure, fraud prevention mechanism on digital financial services.
Let's take a look at the Punch this morning, leading with the Osun governorship poll. It says police declare war on vote buyers, deploy detectives. Over 23,100 security officials deployed as Osun prepares for governorship poll. Meanwhile, Osibanjo and Aregbesola absent as Tinubu and other APC governors rally support for Oyetola. That's the leading photos there. The APC governorship rally in Osogbo yesterday. More headlines above the nameplate of the Punch this morning. Nupeng threatens solidarity strike with ASU. That's on page 24. One more headline here. COVID-19 infections jump by 324% in 1 month.
The Nation newspaper. It's leading with re-election. Osun stands still for Governor Oyetola. And Oyetola and Adeleke is set for a rematch in that state. And more Nigerians groups back Tinubu Shetima ticket. And NPC 200 billion naira initial capital raises stakes on oil and gas investments. Election will be conclusive, INEC promises.
All right, well, we'll look at the Sun. Strike. ASU hits back at the president. Says Buhari waking up to realities after 5 months. Describes varsities as glorified secondary schools. And just down there after the picture, Kwankwaso disowns Tinubu. I wonder what that is really. I never endorsed APC candidate, he says. NAS, just on the black strip there. NAS, Carlos sponsors bills to strengthen armed forces and the Court of Appeal. You find this on page 3. And then death toll in Delta gas plant explosion rises to 10.
Some international papers, The Independence this morning. Leading story, cosmic cliffs where stars are born. Now that photo there is a star-forming area of the Carina Nebula among the images unveiled yesterday from a NASA telescope. And just below that, COVID and heat wave push the NHS to tipping point.
The Financial Times, 8 make Tory ballot as allies of Johnson step up, stop Rishi push.
All right, still on the Daily Express. Let's look at what the Daily Express is saying. Boris loyalist backing trust to stop Rishi. There seems to be a gang up by Boris loyalists against Rishi Sunak.
Well, for the press preview, let's bring in Emmanuel Bello, who joins us now from our outside studio. Emmanuel, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Let's take a look at what's leading on the front of This Day newspaper. More reactions trailing the vice presidential candidate of the APC. Ex-SGF says Tinubu is cornered and he's taking sides against Christians. Some people are also leaving the APC based on the Muslim ticket that the party is running. What are your thoughts?
Well, good morning, Kechi. Kenneth, Indy, good morning. I think what is happening is almost to be expected. The backlash, the aftermath. This was going to happen anyway, and but what we are seeing now is some credible voices and faces coming out to express their serious protests at this. If you look at it, it's not entirely a protest against Islam as a religion from Christian. It is the fact that most people, including some Muslims I've spoken to personally, seem to be against anything that is against balancing and it's against religious tolerance. So that is what this protest is all about. It's not even a case of two religions at war when you look at it deeply. Babachi, for instance, is very close friends to Tinubu. Throughout this piece, he kept saying, my friend, my good friend, my friend. In fact, in his own case, he actually believed that Tinubu has been hijacked and that he was cornered by some lapdogs and, his political associate, forced him, or rather deceived him into this. And sadly, it is actually part of the crisis of understanding the North. It seems to me as if some, politicians especially in the South, don't understand the way the North works. The idea is that the North is one huge Muslim enclave, not knowing that you have a very, very, very credible base for Christian votes too, and a lot to actually pick from. So probably Tinubu was also acting on that, or like Lawal is saying, he was just cornered and he didn't seek clearer, insight into the matter, and then he took this decision. But at the basis of it is just a friend talking to another friend and looking at the dangers. He has not said he's resigning from the party yet, like Prince Will did in Rivers. Because it's a hard sell. It's difficult. Like Lawal said, it puts APC aspirants or contestants in Christian-dominated areas. It's difficult to go and campaign alongside these areas. That's what Inuabuala said. And if I'm also from that demography, the Christian North, and I understand the passion that is tied to this. It's just very, very difficult to even go ahead, go and talk to people, especially given the backdrop of all the religious intolerance that we have seen. So that's what Lawal is hinting at and saying that, saying clearly that this is a hard sell, that it is a lot of Christians are going to massively troop out of the party. So we have seen examples of those kind of living already. And it's not just the Christian North or the North, it's across the country. A lot of people saying that this ticket has a problem. Now Lawal is asking the president to use his power to revoke it. Well, if you do that, that will be fighting fire with fire. And I don't know how that will also pan out. If the president should use his power as the leader of the party to remove Shetima and maybe bring in a Christian running mate. It seems as if at this point it's almost like a no-win situation, because either way is the Hobson choice for Tinubu, because either way you do this now, already the crisis has been born, the stage has been set for a showdown, and all we want to see now is how Tinubu is going to really pave around these issues to see whether he can get something. But the protest is on and it's tough.
Showdown, Emmanuel, you say, well, in Osun State, they will be going head-to-head. Some of the parties, the APC has been campaigning, and we hear that the presidential candidate of the PDP has just landed in the country and will be going to campaign for their candidate as well. What are we looking forward to in that state?
Well, Kenneth, it certainly is going to be a test of how INEC is prepared. INEC, it's another litmus test of INEC and its ability to campaign against, voters, the sale of votes and all of that, and then the transparency it's been talking about. So Osun is going to be another glaring example of how that plays out. I see a little bit of, it's a bit too late for what is going on in the APC, the Muslim ticket, to play out in this. I don't think PDP has had, or the other opposition party has had enough time to campaign around those issues. Those who have elections coming in the next few months have got this problem on their hands. So the way how they are going to sell the idea. The APC contenders, how they are going to sell the Muslim ticket thing to the, especially in Christian-dominated states. But Osun is not likely to be affected, I think, by that problem remotely. And so that's why, but vote buying is still on the front burner. Violence is a huge issue in the Osun election. But INEC and also the security force arms are saying that they will do everything to ensure that Osun is another good example of election. So it's just 3 days away. We'll watch and see how those vote buy-ins are curtailed and how the violence is also stemmed, so that we'll see how those elections will pan out.
All right, 2 issues. The Sun headline strike. ASU hits back at Buhari. Of course, down the line, Kwankwaso says he never sided Tinubu. He's not in his party. Police declare war on vote buyers. They deploy detectives. One of the riders there says more than 23,100 security officials deployed as Osun prepares for government poll. Oshibajo Arebweshola absent. Tinubu APC governors rally support for Oyetola. Emmanuel?
Yep. All right, it's a collection of very good stories there on the front page of the Sun newspaper. Kwankwaso disowning Tinubu is quite interesting. I think a lot of people want to go for that. You say it's not in the party, but I think there was a story at the long weekend where the long holidays where it suggested that Kwankwaso said that, well, if he should lose out, he will tip, or he will rather suggest that his followers, go for Tinubu. But then they are all going to be in the presidential race, obviously. So it's worrisome to see how he could make that kind of claim, to say that he would rather, if he can't make it, he will say Tinubu should be supported, because they are going for elections at the same time. But now in this story, Kwankwaso is saying that, look, he never actually supported Tinubu. He's running his own race. He's a presidential candidate in his own right. So I think that's where this story comes in. Osun is still here on the front page too, and then like I said, it's going to be an interesting race. It's going to be yet another litmus test for the wheels or the determination of INEC to do the right thing. So these are the stories. And then, of course, ASU hitting back at the president. Remember, the president was making a passionate appeal, begging ASU to consider its position. And even in the yesterday, you actually spoke for ASU when you say that, well, they've got bills to pay. So why it's not about begging, and that should be considered too. So I think that's the sort of push now that ASU is making, that it's not about begging, it's not about trying to blackmail it into going back to work, but it's about meeting its demand. Maybe I'm sure that is what the story is hinting at. So that's the ASU pushback to what the ASU pushback to what the president was saying the other day, begging them to go back to work.
Well, Emmanuel, another issue that keeps rearing its head here in Nigeria is COVID-19. I think the Punch has it that the Nigeria Center for Disease Control has announced that in a month, COVID has spiked 324%. And this is not only in Nigeria, also in the UK, the Independent has it that COVID and the heat wave is pushing the NHS to a tipping point. This is an issue that really should be making the front pages as well.
We did hear from the World Health Organization speaking earlier. The chief, Tedros Ghebreyesus, did say that the pandemic is nowhere near over. So we need to keep doing all the things that we've been doing in the past. Keep washing our hands with soap and water, get the hand sanitizer, use the face mask wherever you go to.
And face when you've not washed your hands.
When you haven't washed your hands.
There's something very interesting in the international scene. 8 are now contesting for this particular Boris post. Yes. And Johnson's allies are they're rooting for Truss.
Yes.
Against Rishi Sunak, probably because Johnson says that Rishi shot him on that leg. So they are angry at Rishi. But Rishi is the leading candidate anyway. So we'll see how it pans out.
So you think somehow, even though Boris Johnson says, I don't want to back anyone, I don't want to expressly say, oh, I'm rooting for this person, somehow he might be rooting for Liz Truss.
That's what the papers are saying. The allies of Johnson are rooting for Truss against. In fact, there's a report that says stop It says stop Rishi. How did they say it? They say, I think it's okay.
The Financial
Apes
Times.
make Tory ballot as allies of Johnson step up. Stop Rishi, push. I mean, that's what they're doing now. The allies of Johnson, the phrase stop Rishi, that's the push for them so that Rishi doesn't get into 10 Downing Street. We'll see how that pans out.